So a different drum or different drum, because YouTube has it one way and Google has it the other way. I don't really think it matters much. But this is a very special episode of the Power Rangers to let you know it's really important to learn sign language. I actually really have great affection for this episode. I was surprised after seeing it, how much I liked it. I think the villain is like definitely a moderate challenge. And if this had been a two-parter episode, like you could easily continue making the Gnarly Gnome like a very worthy foe. I love this idea that there's a hypnotic element, um, but that there's also this visualization element to it where it can make itself look more dangerous than it is. The idea that music-based villains are unstable, Finster says at one point, which I think is hilarious. Finster kind of shines in this episode of in as part of the villain crew. He actually like talks back to Rita a little bit, and he like tries to offer her a different villain altogether. Um, and also the gnarly gnome kind of knows how to throw a party in the weird extra dimensional cave that exists somewhere in Angel Grove that we're going to go back to again and again and again for all villainous evil cave vibes. He basically holds like a barbecue party. And he does this really interesting thing where he turns all the dancers he captures into sort of these nymph-like characters. So even though he's got like a Norse mythology vibe, he's doing like a Greek capture thing. Um, he's also all in on being evil just for the sake of having fun and making people dance. Um, there's something really compelling about Gnarly Gnome that makes me think back to like the version of the show where Pudgy Pig or King Sphinx is not as depowered necessarily for sake of time, plot convenience, or whatever. I think it's a really compelling show, a really compelling episode. I do think I'm kind of sad we never see Melissa again, and Melissa is the name of the very special episode character that is friends with Kimberly. Um, as a very special episode, I think this works because it's not like a drug or alcohol episode. It's actually about sign language and it's about understanding, which sounds like a very twee premise and something you wouldn't think I would like. Uh, but the idea is that only Kim out of the whole group and maybe the whole juice bar knows sign language. So when Melissa's friends are in trouble, when they're hypnotized, she has to write stuff down because Jason doesn't know it. And neither does Ernie. So there's actually this moment of like panic. There's also no way that Melissa doesn't know who the Power Rangers are and just doesn't say anything. I'm beginning to think that being a Power Ranger is like the worst kept secret in Angel Grove among teenagers. Like they just know the five kids in matching colored outfits to the Rangers are the Rangers because they just go into an alcove of the juice bar off of like the entrance to teleport. Also in like the last episode, they were teleported back to the juice bar, which somebody would have had to have seen out of the corner of their eye. Um, yeah, but I think as far as very special episodes go, it doesn't feel too heavy-handed. It feels like appropriate level of danger. I actually love the use of the cave. Um, there's a thing in the Sentai that you actually have to get the boots off of the gnome to defeat them. They don't do here. But there's this interesting thing where they kind of leave in the footage of him going invisible. So you could actually add that into your campaign, for instance, which would be kind of a cool idea. The Gnarly Gnome would be a really great villain for like to face over two or three episodes because you can really stack their powers, show they're revealed over time. I think Gnarly Gnome was sort of their jumping off point for how they do the villains. Because all the villains in a lot of the core rule books in the tabletop game have two or three or four powers at varying levels. Some I use successfully, some I don't so much. The Tangas and I think a couple versions of the putty have this like adjacent square you get to do an edge up thing, which is a lot for me as to keep as a jam, so I don't do it as much as I probably should. Um, yeah, but I really liked this episode. It's the conceit too of I don't want to be ungracious about this, but there's a conceit here that does make me uncomfortable. There's a lot of conceits I kind of like about this episode, but there is one I dislike, and I guess I should mention that now. Um, there's this weird kind of compulsive heterosexuality that they kind of force on Billy that doesn't feel like they force it on anyone else. Even when they talk to Bulk and Skull, they kind of assume heterosexuality, but there are a couple points in this episode where Billy is kind of, it feels like they're trying to create a story of Billy being heterosexual. I don't know. And I personally don't know if it's because I know David Yost is gay and he's talked about what he went through on the show. Um, but it just seems like this is the only person they have this conversation about. And I don't know if it's supposed to be he's a late bloomer. Because he does do some really cool dance work in the end of the episode. Like he does more except for maybe the handstand, he actually does what I think is higher level footwork dancing with Melissa than Zach does. I could be wrong. It could be what Zach does is way more intricate, but it's this interesting thing of where it felt like a compulsive heterosexuality, and it felt very like 90s in that way where that this is what you do. I don't know what to make of it. And it came at the beginning and of end of the episode, and Billy doesn't really object. So maybe Billy is written to be straight because obviously at the end of Billy's time on the show, he does go to Aquitar with the female alien. So I don't know. That was like the one thing in the episode that kind of stood out to me. It's interesting because I don't think we see any other point in another episode of Kimberly also leading a class, but apparently she does like a jazzercise gymnastics dance class here. It looks kind of intense, and it also looks like it should be in like a little separate room. It doesn't look like it should be on the floor of the juice bar, but here we are. Um, yeah, I really liked it. I think the premise works. All of the Rangers actually have speaking time, which now I'm looking out for because after a pressing engagement where literally Billy had like one line the entire episode and didn't speak even on screen for a large portion of time. Um, I'm kind of looking out to see how balanced it is even more than I was previously. Yeah, so I'm trying to think if Bulk and Skull are in the episode. They are in the episode because they kind of mock the dance class a little bit. There's the dance battle they have with Zach where he wins basically by doing a handstand on the juice bar, which is great, but not what I would consider dancing. Um, yeah, the Billy and Melissa thing doesn't come up again. I know that a couple of the Rangers do get semi-recurring character girlfriends. Angela is one of them, I believe, is Zach's girlfriend. But don't quote me on that until we've seen her, because we haven't seen her yet. Um, I like a different drum because I can imagine that at the time the Power Rangers kind of exploded onto the scene. That would get a lot of kids interested in potentially in sign language because Melissa does have some heroic elements to her. She's like a really great side character. I mean, it's obvious at this point. She would know who the Power Rangers are. Um, and she went to the cave following her friends without question. Now, this is a little bit of a thing where the villains don't seem to notice things outside of their mission, which is starting to recur a little bit, which I don't mind. Um, no, but I love Melissa. I think it would have been really cool if she'd been around more and done more of the sign language stuff. But I feel like for a kids show handling very special episode work, which is slightly different from other very special episodes, that this show really succeeded in showcasing what you can do with sign language. It's the idea of Kimberly knows more than one language as well, which we haven't seen from other Rangers really. Um, and it's the idea that this expands the universe of who these kids know. Uh, yeah, I think it was really good. I was really surprised by how high it ended up on the list as well. It ended up at currently at number three, so it actually did beat out a pressing engagement and did push Food Fight out of the top five. Uh, so I'm excited to see where um, Big Sisters falls because that's next. So we have like Big Sisters, and then I think I Guy is after that, which is weird. There's an I the exclamation. I, the capital letter, and then I guy. So it's like two eyes. So I guess it's like supposed to be I. Um, yeah, but so a different drum. I don't know if that's the appropriate name for the episode, but it's a really good episode, and I think it is really close to what the Sentai episode was like, if I remember correctly, without the you have to take off their boots thing, which I think helped the pacing a little bit. This is a really good pacing. It lingers a little bit in the opening and closing, which you would think I would ding, but it's just enough that I don't ding it. I do think using Billy as a pratfall, like accident-prone character, feels a little tropish, but it's good for his growth, I guess. It's a really easy way to show growth. And then when he does the dancing at the end to showcase he has learned some stuff. I'm of two minds about it. I think the Rangers as an idea of a coming of age story, like with each character getting their own coming of age narrative, and his is about his body and confidence when his mind is so developed. Because next episode we get the rad bug, and he's also made the risk communicators. So like Billy's mind is super developed. So following it up with like the development of the body is actually a really interesting coming of age story. Yeah. So that's all for a different drum. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Let me know if you kind of wish the Power Rangers had done more of these episodes with people showcasing talents and languages with people from outside of their family, because we don't get a lot of these. Like we get a couple of girlfriend specific episodes at some point, and we have this episode with a deaf character. You get a lot more in the Sentai because they don't really know anyone. So everyone they meet becomes a new part of their found family. I'll be looking out to see if we see Melissa again because she's a really cool side character, and I think I might bring her into my tabletop game at some point. Because I like the idea of having some other versions of otherness. I know this is something the tabletop game has tried to recreate, is making sure that if you have a character that you want to be other, that you have plenty of options for making that character a ranger or an ally in some way. And Melissa feels a very like very much a part of that conversation, that story. So yeah, that was a different drum. I hope you enjoyed it. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. There's been a couple episodes that have been out in the desert, so it's really nice to see, even though I'm starting to see formula, that it feels like every episode can be a little unique. And kind of has to be because this was on like 5 days a week. It was on every afternoon, if I remember correctly. Um, so I'm enjoying going through this, and I can't wait to do more with you. Um, what episode are you excited for me to talk about? I know I'm excited because in a couple episodes we get Eye Guy, which is probably one of my favorite Billy episodes. We're are inching ever closer to the Tommy Oliver Green with Evil arc, which is the first cliffhanger on children's television in America ever. So some of these episodes are going to get really interesting and advanced sooner than you think. I think that's all I have to say. So I will always sign off with, may the power protect you, and I'll see you next time.